Alright everyone, this is going to be a complete Ramattra breakdown. We're going to be covering the 2 developer updates that came out yesterday and the blog post that came out the day before. So this is going to be a pretty lengthy video, but after this video you're going to know everything about Ramattra and everything you need to know to see what kind of hero he's going to be when he releases in a couple weeks. Now with that said, there is going to be a few more developer updates that we're going to take a look at when they do drop, but as of right now I wanted to put together a video that highlighted what his playstyle is going to be like. How powerful is Ramattra actually going to be, and what abilities should we be looking out for? So I'm not going to waste any of your guys' time. Like I said, this is going to be a lengthy video, so let's jump into the blog post and read what the developers have to say and what they want us to know. Building a revolutionary, an inside look at Ramattra with the hero design team. Ramattra storms the Overwatch 2 roster with a fierce ability kit and a domineering playstyle. Would you expect anything else from the leader of Null Sector? Truth be told, Ramattra was a technically challenging hero to make. He's very special in the world of Overwatch, both as a playable hero and as a character with a rich story. Ramattra is exceptional, and we're so excited to share him with you. He was always intended to be a tank because we knew we wanted him to be able to transform into his big, imposing tank. We call this his Nemesis form, but before we get into that, let's walk through his concept and kit with members of the Overwatch 2 hero design team. Ramattra is the first tempo tank we've added to Overwatch 2, which means he can change forms moment to moment. The base form for Ramattra is his Omnic form. When you first select Ramattra, Omnic form is where you're going to start. His weapon in this form is his Void Accelerator, a massive staff that comes with its own set of primary and secondary fire. Void Accelerator's primary fires out a stream of fast-moving nanites, says no. The nanite particles have a travel speed that requires you to lead your targets, but there's no damage fall-off. This gives Ramattra a longer range option, but there's an advantage to using this weapon close range. Lehman elaborates on this point. If you're close to enemies and put your staff right in their face, you're going to do quite a bit of damage, especially if you're hitting crits. The secondary ability is Void Barrier, a temporary high health barrier that Ramattra can place in a targeted location. When you activate the barrier, you'll see a line on the floor to confirm where you want to place the barrier in its range, which creates a few different playstyles, says Lehman. Use it defensively to protect teammates and cut off enemies, or use it offensively to create space and close the gap between you and the other team. Everything about this form enables you to close the gap between enemies, says no. You can use this form tactically to move in on enemies, and activate its Nemesis form where he gains 2 new abilities, Pummel and Block. Alright, moving on to his Nemesis form. Ramattra's Nemesis form changes both his appearance and weapon. He becomes a giant protector, or threat, depending on your perspective. He bulks up with extra armor, and he forms 2 extra arms which serve as his primary weapons in Nemesis form. Pummel launches a short-range wave with each swing, says Lehman. It's also a piercing attack, so if there's enemies stacked within range, they all get hit. It's really nice for playing around things like Reinhardt's shield, Diva's defense matrix, or Winston's bubble. For block, Ramattra throws his big tank arms in front of his face, reducing damage from the front. It's also effective at reducing the damage of Hanzo's dragons and Torbjorn's molten core, despite them surrounding him, explains Lehman. Block slows Ramattra's movement speed, and it only applies to damage received from the front, leaving him vulnerable from behind. There's no cooldown on Block, no elaborates. You can use it whenever you want by weaving in and out between your attacks. The trade-off is you can't punch while using it, and it slows you down. Nemesis is an 8-second ability with an 8-second cooldown, so you aren't permanently in this form. You need to time which form you're in carefully, because the abilities in one form won't be present in the other. However, there's an ability that Ramattra can utilize regardless of which form he's currently using, which would be the Ravenous Vortex. Ravenous Vortex is a ball of nanites that slows, grounds, and damages enemies. This ability is a projectile that bounces off walls, enemies, and slippery slopes like roofs. It must hit the floor to activate, says Lehman. Once activated, it opens up this big area that will slow enemies, pull them to the ground, and deal damage. Ravenous Vortex keeps enemies in Ramattra's sweet spot where he can deal damage easily in either Nemesis or Omnic form. You can also use this ability defensively to keep people off your teammates or lock down certain areas. Ramattra can use this ability to halt the enemy team from rushing you, says no. Enemies have a super weak jump when they are caught in this ability. Winston goes almost nowhere. Ramattra has many tools to help him command space. He doesn't finesse his way into teamfights, he brute forces his path, using any means necessary to achieve his objectives. His ultimate is no exception, which brings us to Annihilation. Annihilation is a special ultimate, says Lehman. First, Ramattra immediately goes into Nemesis mode, but there's something else going on at the same time. Annihilation is a wide energy swarm that lashes out towards any enemies within range, dealing constant damage. It's similar to Transcendence in the sense it creates a big ring around him. Annihilation has beams that latch onto enemies within range, depleting their health, says Liamen. Enemies need to be within the ultimate's range and Ramatra's line of sight, but there's another caveat to this ability. It doesn't end, says Liamen. If the beam is attached to an enemy, it pauses the duration of the ultimate, Liamen continues. The ultimate itself is relatively short, but if it's attached to someone, it's not ending. While these tethers are attached to enemies, Ramattra has all the benefits and abilities from Nemesis form. He gives enemies two options with his ultimate, either eliminate him or move. Alright, so that wraps up all the specifics about his abilities and ultimate, but let's move on to the end of the blog post and see what they have to say. Null Sector meets Overwatch. Ramatra's playstyle is complex and multifaceted, mirroring his history and ideals. Omnic form is highly tactical and gives us a glimpse at Ramatra's ingenious mind. Nemesis form is huge, imposing, and violent, a physical manifestation of his rage. When he unleashes his ultimate Annihilation, he roars, "Suffer as I have." Through this ability, we see the pain he has experienced in his long war against humanity. It makes you wonder, is there anything he won't do to save his people from extinction? Alright everyone, with all of that information fresh in our mind, let's move on over to the new developer update that covers his abilities and his ultimate ability. The first thing they show off in the developer update here is his primary fire in Omnic form, which is his Void Accelerator. The thing to note here is that it does a constant stream of damage when you're shooting it out, it has no damage drop off, and you can get headshots that do critical damage. And just look at that staff, it looks amazing. I can't wait for the skins for him. And then next up we have Void Barrier, which they say is supposed to be tactically used. It doesn't stay up for very long, but it has a really large health pool so it can defend against really high damaging ultimate abilities and abilities in general. And then we get a really awesome look at his Nemesis form, and they focus on his primary fire in this form, which is very similar to the way Zenyatta shoots out his orbs, except this is a little slower and he's not sending orbs out, he's actually punching the air and sending shockwaves. And as you can see here, it literally goes through shields, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then they move on over to his block ability in Nemesis form. You can see he runs forward, he puts his arms up, and he does a crap ton of damage negation, but he's vulnerable from the back as you can see from Tracer shooting at him. Okay, so his block is fairly simple, but this next ability, Ravenous Vortex, is the only ability that he can use in both of his forms, and it is one of the craziest abilities that he has in my opinion. It damages enemies, it slows them, and it pulls enemies down. And last but not least, his ultimate ability, Annihilation. You can see he's running forward, you can see the area effect around him in a circle, just like Zenyatta's ultimate, but the caveat with this ultimate ability, like they said in the blog post, is it's never ending as long as it's attached to an enemy. Okay, so now that we covered everything concerning Ramattra, let me give you my opinions on what we need to look out for when this character goes live. Everyone is pretty concerned about his ultimate ability because it's something different, something that we've never seen before, but they've done a lot of playtesting and I'm sure that they have this ability pretty much rock solid, not when it comes to balancing, but when it comes to how it is set up and how it functions. So I'm not too worried about his ultimate ability. What I am worried about is his primary fire in Nemesis form going through shields. That means we can't block it anymore. What is Reinhardt supposed to do? You pick Reinhardt and then the enemy team has a Ramattra and there's really nothing that you can block anymore. He just goes in a Nemesis form and he can just tear the whole team down. And on top of that, it doesn't just go through shields, it goes through players. So you not only hit the player in front of you, but anyone behind them. That is what seems really overpowered to me. And his Vortex ability. That ability, we're just going to have to wait and see. It just depends on the math. How fast does it pull you down? How much damage does it do? How much are you slowed? Those things can be tweaked, but when it comes to his primary fire, I think that's the big caveat with everything that we're seeing here, and it's something that I am worried about. But overall, I'm extremely excited for Ramattra. I think this is the new standard for the way heroes should be incorporated into Overwatch 2, and it's really exciting to see something so fresh and creative. And that about wraps it up for this video, guys. I want to know what you guys think about Ramattra, so put your comments down below and let's talk about it. And if you're looking for new people to play with, you should join our Discord. The link's in the description. Thank you guys so much. I'll catch you on the next one. Flash out.